Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Shlook. Listen, the podcast that takes a pop with culture.
Very good random speeding up and slowing down there, Benjamin. Very exciting and mysterious. But look, we've no time for compliments because we've loads of stuff to look at this week, including, you've seen but I haven't, all of Arcane Season 2. And, yeah, in a great turnaround from the last couple of weeks, there's pop culture news and trailers. So we got a trailer for How to Train Your Dragoons, the life story of Napoleon Bonaparte, and the second and presumably final trailer for Sonic 3, this time with more Keanu.
Oh, they've put Keanu on in there, Michael.
That's what everyone wanted.
Yes, but he's a hedgehog.
Hedgehog.
They say, Michael.
Ben.
They say.
Ben, if you've forgotten that you do the next bit now, you say, sure, listen, and then you talk about what the topic's going to be.
I just thought I might do a little bit.
Oh, do the bit. People love a bit.
Yeah.
Go on. Put a little bit there.
Michael, they say
What is it that they say?
that they actually went back to the original animation style of the first Sonic movie, and you could see a possessed Shadow the Hedgehog with the face and squinty eyes of Keanu Reeves.
Is that what they really... Did they really say that?
No, they didn't. No, it was a bit, Michael.
Oh, it was a bit.
Listen, Michael. If that bit of humour wasn't shit enough, Michael, sometimes you tell a joke so awkward, so bad, that you wish you could just teleport away.
That's a very good segue. I have to... Very well done. You've rescued that from the fires of damnation with that segue. Well done.
Yeah, it was pretty bad.
Yeah, well done.
Pretty bad. Yeah. Like all good jokes, immediately explain them. And it'll only compound the humour, really. But come here to me. So listen, Michael, we're also taking a look at teleportation and the horrors inherent within.
Oh, it's a horrible concept anyway.
Boogly, Michael. What if it's a ship of Theseus situation and I'm not me on the other side?
Fucking among other things, Ben. Among other things.
Yes. Very good. All right. Let's kick it off, Michael. I should explain.
What?
Before we do this.
Before we kick anything off.
You may have noticed, ladies and gentlemen, something of an unhinged tone to the beginnings of this episode. That is because yours truly, that's me, in layman's speak.
Yeah, it's Benjamin Colopy.
Has fucked the audio settings again.
Yeah.
But you know what keeps me going, Michael?
What keeps you going? Is it spending half an hour fucking around with audio settings before we record every episode of the podcast?
Surprisingly not.
No, that's not what keeps you going. That's what I thought it might be, because you seem to thrive on it in many ways.
It is, in fact.
Yeah.
It is, in fact. Reviews from listeners.
Benjamin, you just reviewed me 15 minutes ago when you called me a cunt.
Yeah, I did. You can see it on the outtakes, ladies and gentlemen, to this very episode. Because it's definitely going online.
Is that the kind of review we'd like?
That's the kind of review we'd like. You can call either of us cunts, ladies and gentlemen. But you have to give us a review to do it. That's how it works.
Yeah.
That's how it works. We did actually get one new review on Spotify, Michael.
Oh, very good. That's very exciting. Was it a good one?
And it was. And 2 new reviews, Michael, on Apple Podcasts.
Oh, we're flying.
So at least 3 people have listened to us. How about 3 more this week, ladies and gentlemen?
Yeah,
one out of that.
Go on.
One out of that.
Go on. You will.
Go on.
Go on. You will, sure. You will, sure.
Ah, you will. You will. But Michael.
What is it?
Speaking of the existential horrors of teleportation.
Right, go on.
This all came about, Michael, because I was watching a bloody TikTok, as I often do.
You often do. Late into the night, Benjamin. Your lovely lady wife has fallen asleep, and you're just doom scrolling through TikTok, trying to
lashing through it,
push back the demons.
Oh, sleep paralysis demons, you little shit.
Yeah, you big shit for me personally. But anyway, go on. And what did you see?
Well, you're a big man, Michael, so you probably need a bigger sleep paralysis demon.
Yeah, that's probably how it would work.
Yeah, but anyway, come here to me. What I saw, Michael, was somebody breaking down young Stephen King.
Oh, Stephen King. The author Stephen King or my friend Stephen King?
No, the author Stephen King, Michael.
Okay, go on.
And they were breaking down a short story from that, Michael, called The Jaunt.
Oh, I've read it. It was from Twilight Zone magazine.
From Twilight Zone magazine, Michael. But it actually made an appearance in his short story collection from 1981, Skeleton Crew. Not to be confused with Jude Law's bizarre children's adaptation of Star Wars called Skeleton Crew.
Skeleton Crew, the such obscure Star Wars show that we forgot to even look at the trailer or mention it until now.
Look at it, Michael. It launched this week. I haven't even looked at it.
I haven't even as much as looked at it. Anyway, go on. I thought it was a little bit later than that. I thought it was 80s. I'm surprised it was 70s. But go on anyway.
No, I said 1981, Michael.
Yeah, but that means it was in the Twilight Zone magazine in the 70s?
No. So, to be very, very clear here, Michael.
Yeah, go on.
The Jaunt,
Yeah.
the short story by Stephen King, first appeared in 1981.
Ah.
It was published in Stephen King's 1980 short story anthology, Skeleton Crew.
That makes a little bit more sense. That feels a bit more right.
That feels a bit more correct. Michael, it shares lauded company with other such Stephen King classic short stories as The Monkey.
The bloody monkey that's coming out of the film in a couple of weeks.
So much so that they've reissued Skeleton Crew, the short story anthology, with a little monkey banging cymbals on the cover.
Have they? I've read that. I might buy a new version, though, because I've lost it.
Yeah, and they've done everybody's favourite thing, Michael, the thing that drives book collectors absolutely wild.
Which is?
You're not going to guess, no?
Oh, you wanted me to guess.
Okay.
They've
I wouldn't have minded.
smeared the pages with feces.
Yeah, and it's driven them wild, Michael. Nothing gets them going like the pheromones of writers from the 80s. Fucking chugs their motors, I tell you. No, Michael, they've done that great thing where they, to save a little bit of money on adhesive paste and stickers, they've just printed directly. Now a Major Motion Netflix movie.
Now a Major Motion.
On the cover. Now a Major Motion.
Oh, they've just printed it on the cover instead of putting it on as a sticker. Oh, disgusting.
Yeah,
Anyway, Benjamin.
The bastards.
Go on, I've read it. What's it about?
Well, Michael, this is what drew me in, right? Because I heard the word jaunt. And the last time I heard the word jaunt was by my fucking grandfather when we used to take a spin in the car. My
little jaunt out.
Myself, I said, fucking
Jaunt out in the car of a Sunday.
Yeah. So, look, there's some really interesting stuff going on here in layers. But essentially, Michael, what we're dealing with is a future society.
The distant future.
Somewhere around the 2300s. So not too distant.
A little bit distant.
A little bit distant. A bit of a trek.
Yeah.
But not Mordor level trekking.
Well,
You know what I mean?
further than Mordor. Certainly geographically. Temporally, if not geographically.
Temporarily, definitely a bit further afield, aye. But come here to me, Michael.
Go on.
It's set then, but most importantly, the discovery that takes place within the jaunt, or the central thesis of the jaunt, takes place in the 80s, or rather an alternate 80s. So Stephen King's doing what he does best, and he's writing about his local time and present.
He's writing about now, but reflecting into the future. And you know what's funny about this, Benjamin?
Yeah.
I haven't read this in 10, 15 years, I think, but there are some weird anachronisms in this, which are so funny and obvious that it was written in the 80s. For example, people are showing up for the jaunt in the year of our Lord 2400 with a newspaper tucked under their arms.
There's no fucking newspaper.
There's no newspapers, Stephen King. People don't have newspapers now, and now is much closer temporally to the 80s than the year 2400.
You never heard of E-Ink, Stephen?
E-Ink, Stephen King of the 1970s or late 80s, early 80s.
Yeah, God, that'll stick him to it. Yeah, because it keeps cutting to a fella in the what is essentially the airport terminal, but for teleportation. Michael.
Yeah, exactly.
And it keeps cutting to an older gentleman who looks up from his paper and smiles. That fucker must look up from his paper and smile about 6 or 7 times in that fucking short story.
Get a grip of yourself.
Jesus Christ.
On your e-tablet or whatever you have in the future, you fuck.
Whatever that fucking is, right?
Go on.
But come here to me. The central concept of this is that man has mastered teleportation.
Yes.
With a significant caveat.
And my favourite thing about the structure of this story is that the caveat, it's clear that there is a caveat, but the reveal of the caveat gradually builds. So, when I started reading this, and I read it again for this episode, in the beginning I was like, I figured this out. The teleportation machine actually kills you. So when everyone thinks they're being put to sleep, they're actually being killed, and they're just being copied on Mars. And there's some sort of transferal of consciousness, but not your body. So when everyone thinks they're being gassed to sleep. And Stephen King goes out of his way through the art of storytelling to imply this as well.
Yes.
By describing characters like collapsing as though they were dead. So me as the slightly informed reader was sitting there quite smugly going, I've bloody figured this one out, boys. I reckon they're killing them and just moving their consciousness to a clone on Mars. But no, they're not. It's not that type of story.
No, not at all, Michael. It's so much more Lovecraftian than that, Michael.
Yes, it's very Lovecraftian and Warhammering, even though this predates Warhammer by half a decade.
This must be a serious chunk of the warp, Michael. The warp must owe a lot to Stephen King based on this one short story from 1985.
Go on, 1981.
Well, the warp, Michael, and you'll have to correct me here, but don't worry if you don't correct me, Michael, because the internet will when I say about Warhammer.
100%.
No. Yeah, so they'll get me, right? But what's happening, Michael, in the warp is that, we can travel across the cosmos.
Yep, as far as you want,
Not
seemingly. There seems to be no limit other than you need a departure portal and an arrival portal. So you do need to set up. It's kind of a Stargate style system, basically.
Yeah. It's the folds on a map, Michael. Yeah, folds on a map. But the best deception of when you fold a map and make it seem like a shorter journey is there's still a whole bunch of shit in the middle. It's not gone anywhere. But we've shortened it down a little bit.
Go on.
And Michael, the really dodgy thing in the warp is that, yes, it gets us there.
Yes, instantly.
But fuck me, is it dodgy?
Okay, so in Warhammer, the warp is evil, basically. And in Warhammer, the warp isn't really teleportation. It can make things quicker. But that's not what's going on in this story. In this story, the type of teleportation in this story is departure portal to arrival portal. You can't just teleport anywhere, anytime. There has to be two linked portals and a computer connecting them. So
uno dos, baby.
Exactly. And more so than that, this doesn't appear to be a discombobulate, recombobulate situation. So a lot of sci-fi portals are, it breaks you down atom by atom and then reassembles you later. And it's not that in this either, because you can put your hand through and half your hand comes out the other side. And it's just floating mysteriously in space and you can see the insides of your muscles and your bones.
It's weird.
And you can pull it back through and you could stick it in and out a lot of times if you wanted. And, I mean, you could get up to all sorts, Ben, I reckon.
Yeah. You could do the hokey cokey.
Do the hokey cokey if you wanted. You could turn it inside out. But, and here's the big fucking twist. What?
That's what you meant, isn't it? The hokey cokey. That's
no, I meant finger blasting, to be honest.
Finger blasting the warp.
Finger blasting across interstellar distances.
Nice.
Which would suit you, actually, in a lot of ways.
Michael.
Because you like to keep your distance, Michael. You know what I'm saying?
Michael. That's vile. Stop that, Michael.
Anyway.
Piss poor.
That's enough.
Poor performance.
You could piss through it as well, I reckon.
Streams across the cosmos.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, what it turns out... Sorry, we're really fucking milking this one. What it turns out, Benjamin, is that the only thing that doesn't cross unharmed is consciousness.
Yeah, don't put your fucking head in there. Don't do it.
Don't put your consciousness in there. Because if your consciousness goes in, it feels like eternity. So you are trapped, awake and conscious, for eternity in the 0.00067 seconds that it takes your body to physically cross the barrier.
Yeah.
And that is just about long enough for anyone or anything to go mad.
Yeah. It'll drive you spare, lads. It'll drive you spare.
It'll drive you absolutely mental. And it kills a lot of mice, which is a great...
the poor mice.
The poor mice get a whack of it. But my favourite little tidbit of this, and the kind of my favorite bit of dark humor in this is that his goldfish goes through and comes out, and 30 seconds later is fine. And that's a little play on the idea that goldfish can only remember things for 30 seconds.
Then it's grand. They scrub the deck. Oh, that'd be lovely, wouldn't it?
Yeah, well, it's not true.
Fucking.
It's
not
unfortunately
true.
not true of goldfish. Well, it's a great little play that the two goldfish go through. One of them dies immediately of shock. The one that doesn't die immediately is shocked for about 30 seconds and then forgets and gets better. And that's brilliant.
Yeah. I mean, this Michael is. I think there's a fabulous bit of building to this because there's plenty of mystery leading up to it. And like you said, initially, I was awful smug as well. I was like, oh, yeah. Oh, it's not really you on the other side. And we've all been buying into mass execution as we go through the gate. Yada, yada, yada. But I think he does a fabulous bit of suspense because there's the mystery of the mice. There's the mystery of Rudy Phobia. I don't know how it's...
Rudy Giuliani, I think.
Rudy Giuliani, Mayor of New York.
And
because it's the mystery of a prisoner. Because naturally, Michael, and I think this is a bit of shrewd astuteness from Stephen King, a bit of good old-fashioned American realism.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, we're going to test humans, but let's do it on the prison.
Let's do a big running man on it.
So Rudy Phobia is the first male, he's the first human test subject, Michael, and he goes through and he's promised a chicken dinner on the other end. That's what he's going to get.
I'm going to correct you there, Benjamin. The first conscious human test subject.
Sorry,
because that's the key to this. If you're knocked out, you don't notice eternity passing.
Yeah, and that's interesting in itself. But anyway, we'll get into that in a second, Michael. So Rudy goes through and he comes out in that most classic of Stephen King-isms, white shocking hair that's just fallen limp to the sides, and he's got 1,000-yard stare, or 1,000 millennium stare as might be more appropriate in this one, and he comes out with the quote, which is, "It's eternity in there," and then he dies. He's just like, oh fuck it. And they do all their tests, they do all their subject stuff, and they go, oh, he's fine chronologically. Like, he's the same fella that went in.
Yeah.
I think it's something like 0.00000067 of a second.
Something like that.
Or something, across 2 miles. But anyway, he's gone through the eternity. And that's grand, right? And then they come up with my favourite thing is, we'll just knock everyone out then as we put them through.
Yeah.
That'll be grand.
Good thinking.
What a fucking nuts concept.
Fucking like stuff.
Oh yeah. Because it's fucking insane. Because the airport terminal is the framing device of this is that Mark Oates is telling his children the story of how the Jaunt became the default mode of transportation for humanity across the stars.
Yes.
And as this is happening, there's 2 lads who I pictured in dentist scrubs,
yes,
going along with the trolley and sticking a mask over people and watching them flop to the deck.
I think they were women. Weren't they women? I'm pretty sure it was like 80s air hostesses.
I think the idea is that the airlines have had to pack it up, but we've kept the trappings of the airline
in the 70s. Yeah.
It's a bit, again, it's one of those anachronisms where it's like newspapers and stewardesses.
Yeah, so exactly. Air hostesses. Probably got a little bib on.
Yeah. But there's a nice bit of tension in that as well, because we don't actually know what they're doing until he gets a bit more through the story. So we just see this sinister fucking goings on where it's like, I think those flopping down in the deck.
I think those people are getting killed. And then all the other people are sweating away as well, nervously going, I'm not doing this.
And then, like, again, it's so interesting because there are such anachronisms and such giant leaps in logic, right? But at the same time, there's some very human observations in it. For example, the 2 people that walk out.
Yes.
They're just like, nah, fuck this. No, I'm not doing it. And they change their minds at the last minute and they walk back out of the teleportation terminal. And I'm like, that's very well observed, Stephen King. Stephen King, you might be a very good writer, Stephen. Like,
yes, I thought it was very well observed, but also a bit of it didn't make sense to me because it's like, this is 400-ish years in the future. So there's 400 years of this technology. Like, 20 years after the invention of the elevator, it's farcical to us now to imagine that people used to be afraid of them. And so 400 years feels too far in the future for people to be still afraid of this. And to spoil the ending for it, it's also too far in the future, and this technology should be mature enough that the thing that happens should never be able to happen. Because who is in charge of letting something so simple happen?
Like, surely, Michael, at this point, you sip a drink and you go out and you don't tell your fucking kids.
Well,
you don't do it with a gas mask to the face. No, hang on.
Yeah. No, look. No, I actually, like, okay, so spoilers, obviously, big spoilers, but his son is intrigued by this idea of seeing eternity. So he holds his breath and doesn't get gassed. And he goes dipshit. He goes mental. Because he is, in fact, a dipshit. But this needs to happen for the horror of this story to be, this was the dad's fault because he tells them the story and intrigues them when their young brains aren't. It's like, it feels like there's a moral lesson about what you say to your kids, but it's not like, it's not like don't frighten them for fun. And it's not like don't try to protect them from the horrors. I don't know what exactly the message is here other than shut the fuck up. Just shut the fuck up, Mark.
Yeah. Mark, stop it.
Stop
it,
it, Mark.
Oates. Cease and desist.
You fucking idiot.
Over. But, like, mental. He keeps looking over at his wife, and his wife is like, oh yeah. Remember it drove those prisoners mad. And he keeps having this fucking demure little smile on her face as Mark enraptures the kids with a story of fucking human experimentation and a glimpse of the cosmic gods that rule over everything.
Yeah. Anyway, like, how there aren't safety protocols to make sure that child was asleep before they shook him through the thing is just unbelievable to me.
Yeah, surely there's a pinch test that they do or something.
A little pinch test, like, you know, future scanners, literally anything. You wouldn't get away with that now. That's like, okay, now, Mr. Leonard, we're going to perform the surgery, so take 10 deep breaths. And then I go, no, I'm going to have the surgery awake you folks. Like, we even the technology of anesthesia is already advanced past the point of where it is in this story.
Yeah. My favorite thought of this, Michael, is when they're sending the people through the gate, which looks like a guillotine without a blade, according to the story. My favorite bit of this is what I picture is that these lads are just like, I picture now Ryanair air hostesses and stewardesses who are on their 6th fucking back-to-back flight to Manchester.
Yeah.
They've dealt with somewhere between 20 to 45 stag and hen dudes.
Yes.
And they're just like, get on the plane.
Just fucking
get on
breathe.
the fucking
Just
plane.
breathe in. If you don't breathe it in, you're going to go mad, and I don't care.
And what I love to think is they fucking knew Ricky was fucking awake, but they're so sick of little kids screaming and running around the terminal. They're like, fuck you. Because there's one kid, everyone else is limp as a sack of fucking rice. And there's one kid who's like, and squeezing his eyes shut, because that's what kids do when they're pretending to be asleep.
Yeah. If he had paid the extra €10 at the gate, he would have got the guaranteed to be asleep package.
Yeah, and fucking Tommy from Ryanair was just like, oh, do you know what?
Just on your foot. Just fucking go.
Through you go.
Fucking Michael O'Leary here on a PR day, and if he sees us holding us up, we're going to get sacked.
But, so anyway, in fairness to it, what comes out of this, Michael, is a good encapsulation of horror from Stephen King. First of all, it's an evil child. So that's pretty fucking thumbs up for Stephen.
Because he goes mental at the end. He goes mental at the end and pokes out his own eyes.
So dipshit Ricky goes through the gate.
Yeah. It's a bit of victim blaming here, Ben. Is that what we're doing this week?
Yeah, fuck him. What a tool.
So fun.
Fucking stupid 8-year-old child who can't make conscious decisions or really have much agency. Fucking idiot.
What an arsehole. Was he 12 or something? He was a little bit...
I don't care, Michael. It's Mark Oates' fault.
Yeah.
It's Mark Oates' fault. He's a fucking idiot. But anyway, goes through, comes out the other side, and Stephen King hit me with one of my most unsettling phrases that I've ever come across. He turns, looks at his son, who is now transformed as a pale little elder being, jet white hair, eyes that look ancient, he says, and he turns to his dad and he says, "Longer than you think, Dad. Longer than you think." And he fucking scabs his own eyes out.
Brilliant.
I was just like, oh, Jesus Christ, Stephen.
Very Event Horizon. Very possessed by the warp. Great stuff, Benjamin. One of the most unsettling, not the most unsettling, horrible transportation accident I've seen this week, but pretty good.
What did you see this week? You all right?
Yeah, oh, bloody bland. I had a bit of a rough one. Benjamin, have you ever heard of the film The Fly?
Yeah, I have, yeah.
Well, I tell you what. You know what mistake I've made? I've gone ahead and watched it.
Oh.
Yeah. And I'll tell you what. Very upsetting.
Very upsetting, Michael.
Because
Very upsetting.
I don't know if you've ever heard the term, Ben, do a big Cronenberg.
Oh, Michael, it's pretty much the alternate tagline to this podcast.
But this film does a big Cronenberg, big time. You tell us about the origins of it before I go into it.
This has bizarre origins. The Fly itself is based on a short story, Michael.
So often the case.
Jesus, we used to get such weird fucking sci-fi and fantasy stories back in the day, didn't we? When magazines like Weird Tales were publishing, and Playboy magazine, Michael,
yes,
was publishing fantasy and science fiction short stories.
Darling, I'm going to read a story about a man who accidentally recombines his DNA with that of a fly. Then I'm going to have a quick wank.
And your wife used to open the door and go, "Oh, please be the half-naked women. Please be the half-naked women."
Oh, thank God he's just having a wank. Oh, God. Oh, thank God.
But so a guy called George Langelan.
Yeah, that's a fake name now if I've ever heard of.
That, Michael, the fakest fucking name you could get. But he was a French-British writer.
Oh, yeah.
And he threw in an short story to the gang at Playboy in 1957, Michael.
Yeah.
And probably his most seminal work, Michael. His best known work is The Fly. And in fairness, not bad. Pretty solid.
About an average amount of seminal compared to most episodes of Playboy magazine.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's a tidal wave, Michael. You can't fight a tidal wave. But come here to me.
Go on.
He wrote that, and it's pretty much what you think, Michael. It's about a man who is experimenting with a little bit of bloody teleportation.
Go on.
And sure, he's only transporting himself from one pod to the other, Michael. But then he mixes his DNA with a fly.
Oh, shit buzz. Now,
Michael,
does he?
Yeah. So it's not as bad as you think, Michael.
No, it's worse.
In 1957,
they didn't really understand what DNA was. So it's not like the David Cronenberg masterpiece where they become some sort of weird fly human mutant DNA hybrid. They become a fly with the head and arms of a man and a man with the head and arms of a fly.
Yeah,
it just swapped their heads around, Ben.
It's very, very 1957. And famously, Michael, it was adapted it made quite the stir in 1957 because it was adapted almost immediately into a film, and Kurt Newman directed it. And it had the famous thing towards the end where someone comes in and right at the end of it, he's about to get swatted, and you hear the famous line,
"He's in a spider web." Said he's in a spider web. He's going to get eaten by a spider.
Spider web. I thought he got squished. What am I thinking of? Where he gets squished at the end?
Maybe he does get squished, but he's in the spider web, I think, and he wants to get helped.
Yeah, he's trapped. Yeah.
And the spider's going to get him.
And yeah.
Anyway,
yeah.
Ben.
But Michael,
yes,
all of that pales in comparison to Cronenberg's Nightmare.
Fucking awful stuff. So, what a cast, first of all, because you've got Jeff Goldblum, and he's naked quite a lot. And that was enough.
Nom.
That was enough for people in the 80s, Benjamin. Jeff Goldblum, sexy Jeff Goldblum. And it had 80s icon Gina Davis as well. And
Gina Davis.
Yeah, and he plays He doesn't play Martin Brundle, ITV's Formula One commentator. He plays Seth Brundle, a visionary, eccentric scientist and sex man who's pretty sure...
Classic.
Yeah, classic. He's got 5 of the same suits, Ben. He's got 5 of the same outfits, so he doesn't have to make his decisions in the morning. Classic, weird scientist sex man. And
Classic Steve Jobs.
he has invented teleportation, would you believe?
He was sitting there eating his Cheerios in his 5th suit of the week.
Yeah.
And he said to himself, I know what I'll do. Ooh, ah, a shorter trip between here and the landing. Ooh, ah.
Yeah, that's not bad.
Nice.
So he has 2 pods, and he can put a thing in the pod, and it gets... Now, in this, Ben, it is distinctly and specifically stated that the object in the first pod is dematerialized, discombobulated atom by atom, and then broadcast to the new one. So you can put anything in there and it'll come out the other side. You can put one of Gina Davis's sexy stockings, for example. You could put one of those in there. It's like Sexual Nightmare. It's a film from the 80s. But I tell you what you can't put in. You can't put in flesh. Because if you put in a baboon...
Don't be doing it.
Don't be doing it. If you put in a baboon, which I think is cruel, if you put in a baboon, it comes out the other side, inside out. Very unpleasant and upsetting.
Yeah, but shite. Don't be doing it.
So anyway, he gets the ride off Gina Davis, and that helps him figure out that he needs to tell the computer what flesh is. And he goes, "Oi, computer!" And the computer's a little bit sassy, and it goes, "Yes." And he says, "Don't do inside out for flesh. Do normal for flesh." And the computer goes, "All right, fine." And then he teleports the baboon, and it works fine, and everyone's fine and happy, and that's the end of the film.
That's it. Nothing else happens in the film.
No, Benjamin. He has a moment of misunderstanding with the woman he's had the ride with, and then he gets drunk and he does something stupid.
Classic Jeff Goldblum.
So Jeff goes into the pod and he's like, I'm going to teleport myself. This is my Jeff Goldblum. It's not as refined. I'm going to teleport myself, Jeff Goldblum, to the other pod.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Little known fact, ladies and gentlemen, throughout the 80s, David Cronenberg made a strange adapted series of Yogi Bear. And Jeff Goldblum did the voice for both Yogi and Boo Boo.
Am I going to teleport myself to the other pod? Yogi?
Oh, God, Jeff, I mean Yogi.
So anyway, he gets in and he's drunk, and the fly gets in with him, would you believe? And he doesn't see it. And he comes out. And he thinks he's fine. And he has this whole thing because he comes out and this is Spider-Man's origin story. He comes out, he's stronger, he's faster, his senses are improved, he can stick to walls, he's climbing up about the place. And he's like, I've invented a system for purifying the DNA. And he thinks that Yogi Bear, the character Yogi Bear, he thinks that he's invented, he has this concept that the disassembling and reassembling is a process of purification and improvement. And so he's like, everybody else get in with me in the machine. It'll be fine. What's his
Hey, boo-boo, I'm a Ubermensch.
So anyway, it turns out it's not fine. It turns out he hasn't purified himself, Benjamin. It turns out he's mixed his DNA with the fly.
Yeah, it's not great.
He has the most hilarious, sassy conversation with the computer using like words that try to sound compute, but from the early 80s. So he's like, if not Brundle, then what? And the computer's like, unknown. And he's like, if not Brundle, what in teleport? So anyway, it turns out he's the Brundle fly now.
Brundle fly!
And his DNA has been recombinated. So it's not like just a head on a human body. And he is gradually morphing into a gross and horrible human-fly hybrid who he's losing the ability to use his teeth. So he has to regurgitate acid like a fly onto his food to digest it. And he becomes more and more gross and horrible. And he comes up with a way to save himself. And his thinking is, I got Gina Davis pregnant. Gina Davis is a human. So if I combine me, Brundlefly, with Gina Davis, and with the fetus in her, which is also part me and part Gina Davis, then that will be me, Gina Davis, and me and Gina Davis and the fly. And therefore way more human than fly, and I'll probably be fine.
Michael, what a solid bit of logic on Jeff Brundlefly.
Yeah, he's gross. He's gross and horrible.
It's so Cronenbergian, though.
This is the defining Cronenberg. It's gross. Yeah. It is disgusting.
Yeah. The effects, Michael, are fucking awful. They're just so unsettling. They're like, it's all practical effects, ladies and gentlemen, because fucking Cronenberg loves a flesh beast.
Yeah.
He does. He loves making it out of plasticine and slime. And fuck me, it's rough stuff. Also, it's so depraved. Like, his solution, his fucking get out of jail free card is, I'm going to combine my body with my unborn child and that woman who kind of spurned me. Oh,
she didn't spurn him. That's the worst thing.
She didn't.
It's a misunderstanding. She's actually gone off to help him.
I reckon David Cronenberg pitched this as a classic rom-com. And people were like, a classic 80s misunderstanding. And they thought it was going to be a kind of tongue-in-cheek remake of 1958's The Fly.
Yeah.
And no.
Well, his tongue is in his cheek, but then his tongue and cheek both slough off. It's gross. Horrible. Anyway, it has the great line, don't be afraid. And then Gina Davis says, be afraid. Be very afraid.
And be afraid, be very afraid.
Marketeers everywhere went, yes, that's it. That is going to define the horror marketing in the 80s.
Well done, Gina Davis.
Well done, Gina Davis.
Very much.
As a reward,
Michael,
here's a script for an upcoming film called Cutthroat Island. What do you think of that?
People will love it.
Guaranteed.
People will love it. It'll be a hit.
Guaranteed hit.
Be a hit. Michael, this brings up the recombination, the recombining of DNA, helpfully narrated by Yogi Bear, brings up possibly
I'm going to recombine it.
Oh, hey, boo-boo. Let's go recombinate some DNA. But here, come here to me.
What?
Michael, arguably where most people were first introduced to the visual concept of teleportation, and the one that made it feel like the technology of the future, the utopian ideal of transport,
is
Star Trek.
Good old Star Trek. Ben, very expensive. Creating a shuttle pod set, which you then have to use to shuttle pod the characters down to the planet every week.
Oh, very tough.
Very expensive, very time-consuming, slows down the narrative. Just have them stand on a platform, disappear in a blue haze, and reappear on the planet in a blue haze.
Just like that.
Yeah. Now, Ben.
Just like that.
In terms of technology, in terms of the philosophy of technology, this is a very different teleportation technology. Because Star Trek is wholly inconsistent on what this is. So
brutal.
There's an implication that you're scanned at a molecular level, discombobulated, and then the pattern of you is sent to the pattern buffer, and then you are recombobulated at your destination. Now, it seems to be easier or safer if you have a transport pad to leave from and arrive on, but it isn't necessary.
Most importantly, that's my favourite type of tech, Michael. Very safe to do this with the right tech, unless you don't have it, in which case, also grand.
Yeah, also grand. Also, guaranteed to never cause any problems, except problems which happen once and are completely unrepeatable.
Ever again. Never.
Because practically every single transporter accident that happens in the world of Star Trek is a universe-changing piece of technology. So let's talk about, for example, the episode Second Chances.
Yeah. Right, from 1993, Michael.
Season 6, I think, of Star Trek The Next Generation. So towards the end, everyone's long established at this point. And in this episode, they go to a planet which they had to abandon 8 years ago. They had to make a quick getaway 8 years ago. And Commander William T. Riker, who has a lovely beard and is crap at the trombone, remembers, this is one I barely got out of. They transported me out of the last second. And, it was a close one, but we did it. They go down to the planet, Benjamin, and they detect a human life sign. And who do they find on the planet, Benjamin? Only a bloody transporter copy of William T. Riker.
Dun, dun, dun.
There's 2 of them. They're both rubbish at the trombone. So this happened because while the transporter chief was trying to beam him up, there was some sort of interference from the ion field. And then he had to recombobulate the discombobulator and then reflect back the incoming bobulation signal towards the reflux abobulator. So,
Colin Meaney just going, Jesus, Riker.
Jesus, I'm after fucking making another fucking William T. There's loads of Colin Meaney in this episode, which is great. Any episode that loves Colin Meaney is fine by me. So anyway, they make another Riker, Benjamin, and they are identical at the time of creation. So they leave the one who gets left on the planet behind, not knowing that he's there, which is an existentially frightening thing to happen, because he's waiting for a rescue. Yeah, especially in the world of Star Trek, where they're like, never leave a man behind, unless, of course, the character doesn't have a name and it's an unspeaking extra. Then it's fine. But
is wearing a what is it? The blue shirt, yellow shirt? What's the
red
shirt?
shirts?
To get left behind.
Red shirts get
red
shirts, yeah.
But
not in The Next Generation. That's in the original series. So anyway, they split apart 8 years ago, and they've had 8 years of very different lives. So they're at loggerheads. They're at loggerheads about who's going to get to ride Councillor Deanna Troi, basically.
I want to ride her. God damn it, Riker! I want to ride her.
But I said I wasn't going to, so I can't go back on it. But look, in the future we know he does. So anyway, that all works out nicely. But this is a very good episode in a sense, because it's not really about the technology. And there's no thought or effort given to the idea of recombobulating them into one man. It's just like, well, no, he's fucking here and he's real, and deal with it. Everyone deal with it.
In some senses, Michael, I think that's one of the most Star Trek Next Generation things about it, in that they have an inherent belief in the right to exist of a separate entity, despite the fact that he's just an odd ion incident away. And there's Colin Meaney going, I made a hames of it, let me fix it. Hang on, I'll hit Control Z. Hold on.
Control Z, William Riker out of existence. So they go down to the planet together, and there's a climactic scene where the 2 of them have to kind of get over their prejudice and annoyance with each other and work together. And it genuinely feels like one or t'other of them is going to make a heroic sacrifice. And therefore, as Star Trek always does, or did at that point anyway, we would be back to square one with one Riker, and we could promptly forget that this had ever happened.
A tidy bow, if you will.
Yeah. A nice tidy sacrifice from the one who was the one on the planet, not the one we've been following. And then that would have been
because he's our Riker.
Exactly.
He's the Riker we know.
He's the real one from our perspective. But they rather bravely, I think, don't do it. They have them both survive. And the other one just shags off and goes, right, well, I'm going to go live my own life now, I guess.
There's so many complications to that idea.
Go on.
So many.
There's none.
Like, what if that Riker falls to socioeconomic hardship and becomes some kind of murderer on the other side of the galaxy, and then everyone's looking out for Riker, and then it's like, what?
That is exactly what happens. He becomes a member. He becomes a member of the Maquis.
Yeah, I know, Michael. That's what I was teeing.
That's what you're doing. Okay, yeah. He becomes a member of the Maquis, the anti-Kardashian. Hey, yeah, let's fucking go with it. Terrorist cell.
Fucking leave that in. Leave that in.
So yeah, it's great. That's a fabulous episode. But I think a better episode that talks about the dangers of transportation is, what's it called? Fear Factory? Balance of Fear? Fear Zone? The one with bloody the guy from the A-Team in it, Dwight Schultz, plays my personal favourite Star Trek The Next Generation character, Lieutenant Charles Barkley. It's not Charles.
Yes.
It's not Charles Barkley.
It's not.
I've forgotten his name. I've forgotten so much. So in this one,
All right, we only had a week.
I've watched this bloody episode, but I've been so focused on the joke of pretending to think it was Charles Barkley that I've forgotten. Reg Barkley is his name. My favourite Star Trek The Next Generation character, Reg Barkley, because he's a bit of a coward, he's got worries, he's got hang-ups, and on a spaceship full of exemplars of human and alien excellence, Reg Barkley was always my favourite character for being a more or less normal bloke.
A normal bloke hurtling through space
Hurtling
on a
through
titan
space.
of a ship.
Being slightly upset about things. He's a real Ben Colopy-esque character. It's like, oh,
Yeah. Look, I can't even refute that, Meyer. That's pretty solid.
I don't know.
I was hurtling through space.
I don't know about this.
But honest to God, if I was hurtling through space in a stupid yellow uniform, right?
Yeah.
Someone said, "Oh, we should probably intervene on that planet, Lieutenant." I'd be like, "Well, hang on. We're not supposed to interfere, lads. And I signed up on the premise that we weren't going to get involved here, lads. That's a primitive species. We don't know what's going to fucking happen, boys. Just take it easy." And I like to think, Michael, somewhere in all that, Colin Meaney would go, "Oh, he has a point, Captain."
No, he wouldn't. He wouldn't. That's the thing. So that's the whole point of this episode. So Reg Barkley, it turns out Reg Barkley is afraid of transporters. And Reg Barkley is played by Dwight Schultz, and he's from the A-Team. And there's no way this wasn't some sort of tangential reference, or maybe even they got the idea from Mr. T being afraid to fly. From B.A. Baracus being afraid to fly, not the actor Mr. T. But anyway, right? He is afraid of transporters. And he, of course, in a classic Isn't It Ironic Alanis Morissette, Mr. Play It Safe was afraid to fly. Aye.
Very good.
When they finally convince him to get in the transporter, of course, something goes wrong. And then he has a classic mentee B, and he is worried that he's got transporter psychosis, which is something from the early days of transporting, when repeatedly breaking down and re-establishing your brain led people to have degradation of the brain.
And not unlike repeatedly knocking out an African-American man when he refused to get a particular mode of transport by hitting him over the head with planks and the like. I'll be able.
I'll be able. Okay. But you know what? I thought that was a civil rights thing. I was like, what? I don't remember this. But you meant Floyd George. It's George Floyd. Is this okay? I didn't know what you meant there. I didn't know where you were going with that. Anyway, what was I saying? So, as a man, Ben, in his 40s, who recently had a health scare and experienced the paranoia of, oh, is my arm tingling? It was so refreshing to see this panicky, sweaty man on a starship, and everyone is so nice to him, and everyone is so understanding of his problems, and they're trying their best to help him, but they do think he's a Guinness. That's the most important thing. Like, Red, come on now. Because, like, this is a proven safe technology for 300 years, 150 years or so. Like, it is, I said this earlier, it's the equivalent of being afraid of elevators.
Yeah, Star Trek has done the correct societal response to a new technology after 200 or so years.
Yeah, but in this, Reg retains his consciousness in the matter stream and can physically act in the matter stream. So this seems to imply that you're basically sucked up through a tube, some sort of trans-phase tube. But
yes,
if that's the case, that's inherently self-contradictory with the William Riker one. Because if...
Not the same.
Yeah. Like, is it breaking you down and reconstituting you? Is it destroying you and remaking you? Yeah. Or is it physically translocating you? You can't have all 3 cakes and eat them.
Yeah, I mean, my favorite thing about this version of teleporting is that it touches upon one of the earliest horrific notions that hit me when I was a child.
Yes.
On why teleportation is a bad idea. And that's Willy Wonka and Mike TV through the TV stream.
Go on.
Where he turns them into, they go into the TV show.
Yes.
And they can transport as a stream of consciousness into a TV. And then the whole way they have to sort it out is they have to send him through 2 different TVs and try and pull all his atoms out and reconstitute him. And I was like,
yeah,
oh, this is awful.
But in that case, he's destroyed, but his atoms, his physical atoms, are sent. And that's one way that Star Trek sometimes implies that transporters work. Your personal atoms are disassociated and beamed physically over space. Yeah. But then sometimes it's implied that it's actually a pattern which is sent. And then that pattern is reconstructed at the location. And that's when you get into the ship of Theseus of, none of these atoms are me. So is this me?
They're all new atoms.
Yeah. And could they have
in
just...
the same
Yeah, and could they have just copied my pattern and made a new version of me at the destination? And if they could do that, why does anyone ever die in this universe? Because you could essentially just quick save yourself every 15 minutes.
A good question.
No one should ever die in Star Trek. Because if you've been transported... a copy of your consciousness exists in the buffer. Now, they come up with ways around this by saying it breaks down over time and so on. But still, you're sending Tasha Yar down to the sticky oil planet. Send her down to the sticky oil planet, yeah. Take your photos for Playboy or whatever. And if she drowns, reconstitute her again.
Just make her up again.
Yeah. Anyway, look.
Use the code you've stored and scanned.
Yeah. Or just make a big Tuvix. We don't even have time to talk about Tuvix.
What? Oh, no, wait. What's a Tuvix? Hang on. What's
Tuvix. You don't know Tuvix? So Tuvix. Tuvix is from a Star Trek Voyager episode in which Neelix and Tuvok have a transporter accident and get merged.
The ugly bugly lads.
Neelix is the chef and Tuvok is the Vulcan science security officer played by Tim Russ. And they get combined into one being who's half of each of them. They get Brundleflied, but if rather than nude Jeff Goldblum on a fly, it was a Vulcan and a chef, and they become one person. But they become one fully integrated, fully functional person with aspects of both people and all of both of their memories played by an entirely new actor. Yeah. And he's on Voyager for a month. And then at the end, they're like, we're going to disassemble you now. We figured out how. And he's like, I don't want to be disassembled, though. I'm Tuvix. And they're like,
hang on.
Yeah, we don't.
Hold the phone.
We don't give a shit, to be honest with you. We want Tuvok and Neelix back, so.
Well, that doesn't feel right, does it, Michael?
Fucking hop it. Fucking get in there. And he's like, I won't. And they're like, well, you better, because we've got guns.
Oh.
And the doctor is
like that, Michael.
Yeah, the doctor's like, oh, you know what? I'm going to step out of this one. I'm not going to. Janeway, if you want to do this, you're pressing the button. And she goes, fine.
That's not very...
Fine, I don't care.
That's not very Star Trek.
Well, Benjo was stuck in the Delta Quadrant. They didn't have Starfleet to fall back on.
I don't think there's any reason to go Lord of the Flies and bloody full-blown give us your rights.
Yeah, well, Benjo...
Your rights of your life.
What I personally would have done would have been recreate the Riker accident, create another Tuvix, and then split one of them. But then that one probably wouldn't have wanted to be split either.
Yeah, well, I mean, how long does it take you to get used to a separate consciousness coexisting with yours? I don't know, Mike.
I don't know.
I've never had a separate consciousness share my body.
Exactly, Ben. You've never had a person share your body.
Very good, Michael. Very good.
Look, you're a virgin, Benjamin. I've implied that you're a virgin there.
skewered me.
Absolutely skewered you. Like a Rogelian skewer.
Petard. I don't know. Michael.
What?
All of this
Yep.
reminds me of two of my favourite bits. Well, I suppose we're out of time, are we, Michael?
Go on,
We are out of
very
time.
quickly, and then tell us about Arcane. We'll skip the trailers this week. We've been going on too long.
Two of my favourite visceral bits of fiction when it comes to this kind of thing are you aware of the British author Peter Clines, Michael?
Peter Clines doesn't sound like I'm British author.
No, it doesn't, but he is. It's Clines, Clines. He came up with three kind of Lovecraftian elder being novels that aren't one of my favourite things about this, and spoilers for this, so very quick spoilers for this series of books, but it's not immediately apparent that they're all in the same universe, Michael, but it's all about universe hopping and teleportation and all this kind of stuff. And as it turns out, Michael, as the novels progress, it turns out that they're all part of the same universe, all part of the same storyline at different points chronologically. It's very good. But one of the key works of this is from 2015, and it's called The Fold, Michael. And The Fold is all about a teleportation device called the Albuquerque Door.
Oh, that sounds dangerous.
Name. Yeah, that does. Benjamin, that's a device linking.
Benjamin!
Yes.
That's what I call my anus!
We got a reference to Mick's anus in, ladies and gentlemen. That's it for this week. We have done it. That's number wang. That's Mickle's anus. As the oft not quoted David Mitchell. No, never mind.
Doesn't matter.
I'm going to leave that bit behind.
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Benjamin, come on, we need to get this over and done with. I have to go open the Albuquerque door. I have to take a shit is what I'm saying.
Harry.
Yeah. Come on!
The Albuquerque Door, Michael, is supposed to be about teleportation, and we think, Michael,
Yes?
we think it's nothing to do with dimensions, but it turns out that the Albuquerque Door gets you from point A to point B in your reality by taking a shortcut through Universe C.
Oh, in Universe C.
It's a parallel dimension, Michael. But what's actually happening is the person who stepped through the Albuquerque Door is replaced by their doppelganger in the alternate universe and comes out the other side.
Oh, very interesting.
Yeah. And what's heavily implied is, Michael, that the people who often step through the Albuquerque Door on the other side are followers of Cthulhu or follower of an elder being, and they're using this to kind of step through dimensions and help their elder god into new dimensions. Oh, it's very funky.
What's that
Very
called?
funky stuff.
What's that cycle called, Ben?
I can't remember the full name.
Tell me what it's called. I want
Look
to
up Peter
read
Clines.
it.
They're his most famous books, Michael. It's The Fold, Terminus, and Abandoned something. I can't remember what it is. But I'll send them to you after this, Michael. I'll send you the shoot at them. You'll enjoy it. It's very good.
Benjamin, I'm
very
trying
good.
to do a
Romp
quick search
stuff,
now.
Michael.
Ein series of books von Peter Klein.
Peter Klein, Clines. But my other favourite version of this, Michael, is The Prestige.
Oh, we
It's
forgot
so
to talk
fucking
about
visceral.
Prestige. Now,
Yeah.
big spoilers, Benjamin. Big spoilers for the Prestige.
Big spoilers.
Big spoilers. Big, enormous spoilers for the Prestige. No teleportation going on.
No, not really. Not really, Michael.
Not really.
That's my favourite bit about this, Michael. It's my favourite bit about this. Because the whole thing is the transported man. The 1800s magic act of the transported man. And it's set up like a big, kind of, a huge classic magic show. It has big painted posters and it has a big name for the act and stuff like that. It's straight out of Houdini. It's fantastic stuff. And it's set around the concept of two magicians who are constantly trying to outdo themselves. And one man, it's based on a 1995 novel, but probably what's made it famous, Michael, is the 2005 adaptation of it by young Chris Nolan.
Only one twist.
Only one big twist, Michael.
Oh, no, there's two twists, actually. There's two big twists.
There's two big twists, but one of them is based in magic or science, as it were. And what happens is that young, huge, jacked man,
Quite young in this.
Michael, quite young in this, he pulls ahead in this competition by discovering a fucking cracker of a magic trick, Michael.
Yeah.
And he's fucking done it. He's fucking pulled off teleportation. And the great premise of this fucking movie is, Michael, that he is constantly up against Christian Bale, and Christian Bale thinks that he has discovered magic. Now, the premise always is that magic requires sacrifice. And not magic, but illusion. If you're going to fool people into thinking magic is real, you have to sacrifice stuff. And there's a few ways that's put across in the film, Michael. You know, certain people cut off their fingers to do bloody sleight of hand better. Old Chinese men hold goldfish bowls between their thighs for their entire lives, so no one ever suspects that it's not a crouched limp. And, you know, there's lots of things that do that. But, Michael, as it turns out, it's not real magic because Christian Bale is driving himself spare. He's like, how the fuck is this man pulling off teleportation? And, Michael, it's fucking awful.
Yeah, it's gross. So it turns
He's not
out...
pulling off teleportation.
No. Turns out David Bowie showed him how to not do teleportation, but how to do long-distance cloning.
Instant cloning.
Instant long-distance cloning. But, you know what the worst thing about cloning is, Ben? You end up with 2 Rikers.
What's that? Yeah, you end up with 2 Rikers. And let's just say, ladies and gentlemen, that diplomacy is not, as you may have guessed, part of the British colonial empire's attitude towards cloning at that time. And instead, they both clones play a game of, I don't know who the real one is, but one of us is going to die. And the way that is done, Michael, is through a trapdoor with a fucking fish tank at the bottom of it that you drown in if you're the unlucky fucking clone.
So, it's not the unlucky one, though, is it? It's the one who initiates it. That's who dies. So,
yes, they make the sacrifice.
Yeah, so basically every time he does this magic trick, he drowns to death, and a copy is made instantly. And is it him? There seems to be a continuity of consciousness, but fucking talk about ship of Theseus. This is a whole new ship every time.
Oh, man, it's mental. But it takes a lot of those ideas, Michael, of those hinted at in the Star Trek episodes, and just kind of flesh them out in a more horrific, visceral fashion.
And actually probably why that's how I thought, to win all the way back around to the start of the episode, this is how I thought the Jaunt worked.
Yeah. You've been primed.
Yeah.
You've been primed.
So that they were creating a clone, an instant clone on Mars, and then everyone just slides down this chute and gets incinerated. All the originals.
Yep. Yep. I mean, also something I'd probably read and or watch. I mean, it sounds like fun, to be honest. But
Benjamin.
Yeah, so that's it.
Anyway, look, before the listeners teleport themselves off to have a cup of tea and a bit of toast, tell us about Arcane Season 2.
Ah, Michael, spectacular stuff from there.
Is it?
Fuck me.
Is it still good?
Arcane is fucking great.
Go on.
Oh my goodness, Michael.
Go on.
So I was a huge fan of Arcane Season 1 for several thousand reasons, Michael.
Hayley
and I never thought I
Steinfeld.
would be. Haley Steinfeld, how are you doing? Ella Purnell, how are you?
Yeah, they could do a live action.
They could.
They
and
look
I'd
like
watch it. Come here to me, Michael.
God.
Come here to me. The reason I love the first one is, number one, very unique storytelling, which I didn't think would be possible from something based on League of Legends. I was wrong. I was wrong.
I say you're wrong.
Possibly, yeah, shocking, I know. Ben Colby, wrong, on his own podcast. Who would have focused that? That's very funny, ladies and gentlemen, because if you've ever listened to this podcast, I'm mostly wrong.
Wrong point off. That is certain.
But anyway, Season 1, spectacular writing, excellent character, interesting growth, fascinating stakes, a really interesting treatment of magic as a source of solutions to society's problem, by which I mean, don't fucking touch magic. Don't go near the arcane. Don't fucking do it.
It's not the solution.
Love it. Anyway, it's pretty interesting. Time jumps are kind of a concept within the series of Arcane, and it's based on League of Legends, but it is a beautiful use case for abandoning canon and reinterpreting characters. So one of the big debates about Arcane is it going to be canon? It absolutely fucking isn't, because they've surpassed any amount of video game world building in creating the show Arcane.
That's fine.
But anyway.
I'm fine with that. That's fine. Make Lara Croft a lesbian. That's fine. Who cares?
And boy, oh boy, do they. But come here to me, Michael. One of my favourite things about this is it's fucking beautiful to look at. It is a visually stunning masterpiece, and that has remained rock solid throughout the run. And we pick up kind of where season 1 left off, Michael, where Vi discovers what her sister's up to. Jinx is the sister. The lesbian relationship hinted at in season 1. Fuck me, Michael. Did they deliver on the fan service?
Do they really?
Jesus Christ. The amount of lingering looks, Michael, between Vi and fucking... I can't remember her name. That's really bad.
Sharon.
Vi and Sharon. That's what it is now. Viv and Sharon down the pub on a Monday night, always looking at each other across the bar.
Yeah. Hoping their husbands don't.
But yeah, anyway, Michael.
Yes.
It picks up where that left off, and one of the things that we saw happen at the end of season 1 is that Jinx attacks the upper echelon of Arcane society and pretty much commits a terrorist attack against the council, the High Council of Piltover. And that's what happens, right? And this picks up directly after that, in the aftermath of that, and it begins to develop the stories out for each of the characters. But Michael, the amount of investment this show pulled out of me, well done to it. Fuck me. I never thought I'd care so much about a bunch of characters. Is it trashy at times, Michael? Is it absolute fan service at times? Yes. Is that a bad thing? Absolutely fucking not, Michael. It is spectacular. Cinematically stunning, some of the best fight sequences I've ever seen, some incredible found family stakes. Mwah, 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 mwah. Arcane Season 2, ladies and gentlemen. Go out there, get it into you. Fucking hell.
Get it into you. It's been a good couple of months for comic book or pop culture adjacent TV. That's pretty good. Penguin is pretty good. Agatha All Along turned out to be not too bad. Yeah,
pretty good.
It's pretty good. There's some
pretty
good
for that last episode.
Yeah. There's some good genre adjacent stuff on at the moment. It's about fucking time.
But you know what the secret is, Michael?
What is it?
Fuck superheroes.
Get them in the bin.
Who fucking needs them?
Put them in the bin. Get bloody Nightcrawler in the bin. Get bloody Azazel, Marvel's Azazel. Get him in the bin as well.
Get fucked Azazel, you little shitbag. Get it in the bin.
Anyway, that's it.
Get in the bin. Michael, speaking of putting things in the bin,
yes,
ladies and gentlemen, if you don't feel like putting us in the bin right now, you might like this podcast.
What's wrong with you?
And you should give us a review wherever you listen. Now, that could be wherever you like, ladies and gentlemen. You might be on Spotify, you might be on Apple Podcasts, you might be on the Google Podcasts. I'm just kidding. Google Podcasts is dead and buried. You won't find us there. But we're also on YouTube, ladies and gentlemen. We're on bloody TikTok. We're on Instagram. And conveniently for you,
yes,
those are all linked below in the description.
The little wiggly woggly there.
If you haven't had enough of us shiting on, but you feel like maybe I could stand these guys if they were a bit more structured, you might enjoy our other podcast, Collecting Issues, the monthly comic book club, where for November we're reading Ed Brubaker and Mario Martin's bloody classic bit of Lovecraftian noir, Friday, books 1, 2 and 3. Go and check that out down below in the descriptions. And ladies and gentlemen, if you fancy talking about general fucking pop culture shite, join the Discord for this podcast. And if you fancy a more structured literary take on the comic book genre, join the Collecting Issues podcast. Also, conveniently linked down below. Oh. Whoa. But yeah, that's it from us, ladies and gentlemen. Except if you've enjoyed all the weird kind of nostalgic looks, 1980s short stories, 1990s bloody television series, you might enjoy next week's episode where we're doing a classic exhumed to kick off December because I mismanaged the schedule and didn't realise this is the last fucking Monday in the month, ladies and gentlemen. Terrible, terrible stuff. But don't worry, because next week we're taking a look at Inner Space. Yeah, very good, Michael. Michael is doing what I can only assume is an audio guide or a visual guide for the audio impaired. If so, well done on making it through this podcast at 1 hour and 11 minutes. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, Inner Space next week. Give us your thoughts. Give us your opinions. Look it down below in the description. It's also coming up to the end of the year, ladies and gentlemen, so get your thinking caps on for what you thought was the best damn series, the best damn movie, and the best damn bit of fiction that you came across all year, because the Mickeys are coming up. They're coming up.
And the best and worst egg of the year.
Will be Best and worst egg of the year. I think it's probably going to be Elon Musk, but who fucking knows? A 2-time winner.
Oh, Muskie. Benjamin.
Who? Yes.
I believe they initially planned to call Inner Space I've Got Kevin Bacon Inside Me.
I've got Kevin Bacon inside of me. Aren't I a lucky boy?
Is Kevin Bacon?
Is what it was originally going to be called.
Is he?
No, he's not. I don't know where you pulled that from.
It's not Kevin Bacon at all. That's Dennis Quaid.
But Michael, that's exactly why they changed the name from.
That's why they changed the name.
Because they couldn't get Kevin Bacon. Ladies and gentlemen, that's us. Goodbye. That's a fucking win. That was great.